Finished training for the day? Time to fight post-workout fatigue with Core Power Protein Shakes. They're packed with 26 grams of high-quality protein to build muscle and electrolytes to help hydrate. The nutrition you need to help your body replenish, rebuild, and repair post-workout so you can power on to the next one. Champion your recovery with Core Power. Visit corepower.com to learn more.
Does it ever feel like you're a marketing professional just
speaking into the void?
But with LinkedIn ads, you can know you're reaching the right decision makers, a network of 130 million of them, in fact. You can even target buyers by job title, industry, company, seniority, skills, and did I say job title? See how you can avoid the void and reach the right buyers with LinkedIn ads. Spend $250 on your first campaign and get a free $250 credit for the next one. Get started at linkedin.com/campaign. Terms and conditions apply.
Dripping in gold? That's cool. Dripping in Velveeta's supremely creamy golden cheesiness? That's respect. Elevate your drip with Velveeta's range of outrageously delicious dips and dishes. Shells, cheese, melty blocks, and heat and eat queso that go all in on indulgence. Flex on your fam with a creamy, cheesy masterpiece and go all in on what you love with Velveeta. Respect the drip and satisfy your cravings. Bring home the drip with Velveeta.
The 24-25 season is about to begin and the SRC Super Rugby Cymru podcast is here. Join our band of unlikely brothers as we delve into the chances and fortunes of Aberafan, Bridgend, Carmarthen Quins, Llandovery, Swansea, and last but not least, Rugby Gogledd Cymru, RGC.
You're listening to the Super Rugby Cymru podcast.
Hello and welcome to the first ever SRC Super Rugby Cymru podcast. Joining me this evening, I am Big M. I have two compatriots with me who, I'll be honest, this is the first time I'm seeing one and I've never met the other one in person. So we are complete strangers. So first up, we've got John Harris. Good evening, my friend.
Good evening, Mr. M.
Mr. M, I like that. They do call me Martin from time to time, but M sounds nice, fair play. And our third, but he's not a wheel, Mr. Rob Rees. If you are into your Welsh community rugby, you will already know this man. How are we, my friend?
All good, gents. I quite like M. It gives it a bit of a Bond feel.
Oh yeah, I didn't even think of that. I am a guy. I've got the looks. Obviously, the hair is just fantastic. I mean, who could say no to that? So, first ever episode of us getting together and actually talking about all the clubs in the SRC. So let's give a little introduction to ourselves. I am Mr. M, Big M, Martin, whatever you want to call me. I'm easy either way. If you listen to any of our other podcasts in the Rap family, that's WRRAP. All of these podcasts, you'll know me from the Scarlets podcast and you'll see me occasionally on the Rap one. I just love rugby. That's what I'm here for. And I especially love community rugby. Anyone who listens to the Scarlets one will already know that. Over to you, John. Give us a brief introduction to yourself.
I'm just a massive club rugby fan. Aberafan, my team, obviously, got the jersey on here, the one in the background, to try and make it look as if I had some clue as to what I'm doing, which I don't. But, supported Aberafan since I was about 7-8 years old. And my granddad used to take me in the very early 90s when Aberafan was still in the top league in Wales. So, of course, all the Welsh internationals used to come down to Talbot Athletic. So it was a massive thing for a little kid then. It was like, whoa, I'm watching proper rugby. And when the regions started, we were sort of not really included in the Ospreys, so just kind of always stuck with them. Did support the Ospreys as well when it first started out, and he had the Galacticos, but it was always Aberafan was my club. So, and I always enjoyed going to the Premiership games more, to be honest. It's more exciting, get more banter with the away supporters, banter / abuse. Yeah, and listen to the rap podcast and the Ospreys Irish spin-off. I haven't got time to listen to all the spin-offs, I'll be honest, but I'll listen to those ones. And yeah, that's about it. Living Port Talbot, obviously, being Abraham fan, played for Baglan, youth and senior, but way too old and just brittle for that now. So yeah, when this got put up, anyone want to contribute to an SRC podcast? I was like, yeah, I fancy a bit of that because the clubs don't get enough coverage, and we're certainly not going to get it off the WRU or anyone else. So we got to do it ourselves.
That is Mr. Harris, everybody. And just so you can note, before we came on, I said keep your introduction short.
I know.
That is his idea of short. So let's see who probably is the most professional out of any of us, Mr. Rob Rees. Who are you? Tell me.
So I guess my link to the SRC is I'm a freelance sports journalist, mainly covered the Welsh Premiership as we were formerly known for a number of years now. I'm an Ebervale boy, so that's my sort of local club. And as I think John's hit the nail on the head, is for me it's all about promoting the league and not just the Premiership or the SRC as we've got it now, but grassroots and the community game as a whole, because it doesn't get the coverage that it really deserves, I'll be honest. And there's a number of reasons for that, but there's no point in complaining. You may as well get out there and sort of cover it yourself. And that's what I like to do.
Well, there we go. That was a nice introduction. I like
that's that. How you keep it short.
That's so we won't keep anything else short. Okay, we might. I might get bored. Okay, so I've been trying to work out a way to do this. We are going to look at the western half-ish. We might get to RGC if we're lucky in this episode. So I'm not going to go alphabetically, but being as though you're in the kit, let's start with Aberafan. So tell me a bit about your club. Do you know any of the head coaches or what team we're looking at this season?
Yeah, we've got Jason Hyatt is the head coach. He's a former hooker for the club as well. He's been coach for a good few years now. And we've got Chris Davis, or Swanky as he's known to everyone. He's the attack coach this year because he has been doing attack and defence. But this year he's attack coach. He's a former player, Wales Sevens, played for Newport before. I'm sure I'm going to get fact checked on that now, but I'm sure he played for Newport before the regions were formed as well. But he might not be that old, actually. I might get a slap for that. Yeah, we've. I should know the names by now. Sorry, but I know we've got two new defense. We've got a new defense coach in this year and an assistant defense coach. So hopefully, with taking some of the pressure off Swanky now having to do both jobs, that'll get us going forward. I know they've made a lot of new signings in the summer because I know I went to the last game of last season and it was something like 14 to 16 players either left, moved on to new clubs or retired. So there's been a lot of players coming in, young players. I think the average age of the team is like 23 for this season. A lot of uni players coming in because they've got links with Cardiff University because I think Chris Davis is involved with them. So there's some players coming in from them. I know got one from Bath University as well, I think. So there's a lot of young. I think they've only got 4 players in their 30s this season. So
I've seen the squad that they've posted on their socials. Yeah. It is an incredibly young squad. This is supposedly a development competition, but that does take the cake. So many players so young.
Yeah,
they still
saw it as well. Yeah, was there enough? Is there enough experience in there now to bring these? You can't just put all the youngsters in, can you? Obviously, but I did see them play the Rams pre-season, and a lot of these young players do look very good as well. So hopefully there'll be enough experience in there to bring these boys on as well.
Yeah. So talking of experience with Aberafan, you've got names that anyone around. Well, I mean, everyone should know Rowan Jenkins because he has been in and around the scene for quite a few years now, and club captain Joe Gage.
Got quality,
What more can you say when you're talking Aberfan rugby? So, Joe, you've been covering the Premiership, like you said. You had Aberfan for however many years. What's your take on this new squad this season?
It's an interesting one, I think, for Aberfan. I think this is very much I wouldn't like to say the first year of that new development, that new era. Because last year, the likes of Scott Del Nevo really like the look of him coming in at fullback. They've sort of started it off already, but I'm sure they've lost more players than anybody else coming into the SRC season. And that's never easy to deal with. It doesn't matter who you bring in, whether it's experienced players or a lot of young players, but it's that sort of high turnover. So Jason and the boys have got a big job just to get the boys working together. I think there's a lot of teams in that similar position, which is sort of going to help Aberfan in that case. And I think what they're doing is what the league is all about, is a development competition. And it's all about clubs trying, in sort of its sort of barest format, in sort of staying strong to its local roots. And you look back over the Aberfan signings, and probably 95, 96% of them, if not all of them, started off from Port Talbot, or all the boys are local, in sort of some shape or form. They haven't signed anybody from Carmarthen or Bridgend or Swansea. They're all boys that are sort of known to the area. They'll know Aberfan. As John said, you grow up, supporting or knowing of Aberfan as a club is the same with any side. If it's your local area, you understand the ethos and the sort of the culture that the supporters, the backroom staff, the volunteers, the players like your Owen Jenkins who have been around at the club for such a long time, what they bring into the sort of the table and what you need to bring to the table. I think we've seen quite a few clubs sort of reset, I guess, is the sort of the terminology I would use for Aberfan. And I think they've got a pretty good stab at it this year. I mean, yes, they've got a lot of new partnerships, but sometimes that's just better to get it all done. You look 2 seasons ago, and we've seen the Swanseas and the Ebervales, and a lot of teams have sort of done that reset or started it in motion at some time, and you can see the development come through. So I'm excited to see what a young squad can do, but one that's already sort of taken shape.
Yeah. So if we take a quick look at Aberfan, John, you've already mentioned they played the Rams pre-season. That was a 35-28 loss at home. They also had a 30-minute run out against the Ospreys, in which they lost 12-5. And semi-professional against professional.
Yeah.
Even in 30 minutes, one score. You can't knock it. I mean,
no, there was a very good play too from one of the young players, Felix Gilbert, who against the Rams, he scored a couple of tries, chased everything, ran hard, smashed everything once he finished those chases as well. So I think there was a lot of promise to take from that. I know it was only 30 minutes, but the scrum looked solid against some big boys in that Osprey. I know they maybe not be the first choice Ospreys, but they're still big boys and young boys as well who got a lot of promise. So the lineup went a lot better than it did in the last game. So glad to see that's progressing.
I think is important to say as well is actually the closest result of the 3 teams that took on the Ospreys.
Yeah.
I mean, Swansea's wasn't too bad, 9 points adrift. Bridgend with 33 points adrift.
Yeah.
Like I said, you're never going to be world beaters against a professional outfit, especially when you consider where you are in the reset. So I think Aberfan will take a lot of positivity out of that. I mean, they haven't won a game yet in pre-season, but sometimes that tells you a lot more. I mean, I know we're looking at the West of the clubs today, but I mean, I look at us, I know it was an anniversary sort of thing, but Usk and Newport, 106-5. And you go, how much do you learn off that other than a bit of a run out? So sometimes, taking on the likes of obviously the Ospreys or your better quality English opposition can tell you a lot more than your run-outs against, lower quality Welsh opposition.
Yeah.
I mean, that takes me right on to my next point. They've had those 2 preseason games. They have got 1 left. They are hosting Cambridge.
Yeah.
So now Cambridge, let me check. They went to the Arts Park and they lost 14-12. So I think this weekend, this result is going to be an eye-opener. It's going to give us an idea of where Aberavon are in terms of against the likes of Cardiff.
Yeah.
Touring sides, they don't tend to take that many players. Cambridge, okay, I know you can do the trip in a day, but, it's going to be an awkward side, regardless. So last season, it was a bottom half affair. No need to get too stuck into it. So where are we expecting Aberavon this season? Obviously, everyone gets into the playoffs at the end of the season, which is still mind-boggling to me.
Yeah, that's a weird one, that is, isn't it?
So, John, you are the heart of Aberavon on this podcast. Where do we see them lining up?
It's a tricky one to call, isn't it? Because, like I said, because all the teams are sort of resetting this year. So desperately trying to look at all these pre-season results and who's playing who to try and figure out who's where. But I could only go on. I didn't get round to watching the Swansea and Bridgend Osprey half hours because I just couldn't find the time anywhere. I must get the Aberavon one on my phone in work, which I'll get in trouble for. But yeah, I'd like to think from what I've seen, I was quite impressed though against the Rams and the Ospreys because I thought with so many players coming in and so many going, but this is going to take a while. But I thought even though they conceded 5 tries against the Rams, I thought their defence was actually very good. Their first up tackling against what you could see was a much bigger side they were playing, but they were physical, they were hitting them, and I thought they looked very good for a team, more or less a new team. But like Rob said, they started this last season. They blooded a lot of young players last year who've now played a full season of Premiership rugby to start this new competition. So I'm optimistic, but I think it's all going to come down to that first game against Ebbw Vale away on the 14th to see how that goes. And then we need a good 3 or 4 rounds before we know where everyone is, I think.
Oh, come on, John. Be brave. I'll give a prediction myself. But just pick 1 to 10 where an Aberavon finish it. Come on, Pat.
Oh,
nice
top 10. Top 10, easy.
It's hard to be a long season.
It's hard to say. It's hard to make a prediction without sounding biased, but I think they'll be top 5 or 6. I do because they generally are.
Here we go. Okay, I'll take that.
I'd like to think what they built on last year will kick on for this year now. So I'll go top 5.
Oh, here we go. So let's say 5th. John is saying 5th. I'm going to be nice and quick. I've pegged them at 7th. Rob, what do you think? This isn't personal. There's no money on it. This is a bit of fun. So come on.
Do you know what? I can see him somewhere in the, I say 6 to 8 bracket. 8 seems really harsh, but I think it's sort of one of those ones, as John said, 3 or 4 weeks in, we'll start to see where the teams that they're basically going to be battling for those sort of areas, is anybody going to step up? Will it be Aberavon? I think 6 is probably about where I think they may get to. I think there's a couple of sides right at the top who are in some sort of an experienced stage of their sort of tenure. There's a couple of sides ahead of them in this sort of their development. So I think 6 is probably about what I think they will. But then again, I know it's difficult with the playoffs, but I think if they say finish top half, that'll probably be quite pleasing to Jason and the team, knowing where performances were last year, and I think the key to moving up the table this year or being in that sort of pushing to the top half is they got to stop leaking points and sort of closing those gaps in the midfield. From what I was seeing last year, there was a lot of sloppy mistakes or bit of loose defending in sort of the centre of the park, and it was costing them two or three tries quickly in the second half when the game was close, and then result was 3 scores. It was literally that sort of that 10-15 minute lapse, and at this level, that's enough.
Well, that is Aberravan for us. Okay, so I'm not going alphabetical. I'm just going to skip one here. I'm going to travel a little bit west. Okay, probably a bit more than a little. Carmarthen Quins. So they are headed up by the director of rugby, Stefan Thomas. I mean, it wasn't great last season. I mean, what was it? 6 wins out of 24. They're having a hard time, and I'm looking at the players that have left now. You got Hayden Pugh, Torrin Myhill, Leon Randall, who has conveniently gone to the Drovers coaching, Ben Lueng, and Josh Badcap. I mean, these were boys who they were the core of that team. So I know there's good names in that team. I can see that squad, and there's good players there, but I am personally worried. Being, a Scarlet. I know the academies boys in there will do a job when they're asked of it, but overall, losing that much experience, it is a bit of a worry.
Yeah, I think Quins are probably the side that are right on this reset. They're probably the freshest of the clubs doing it. They've got a pretty sizable squad. And again, it's a very, very young one. They struggled with injuries a lot at the start of last year. So they started blooding a lot of players. I mean, they've signed Reece Fawcett from Aberravan. I think that's quite a smart signing in itself. I think they needed some experience, especially with the likes of Torrin and Ben, disappearing. They've got a solid pack. I think they just needed that little bit more experience back in there. And I think they need to start putting some backlines together, because I think that's where they struggled last year was, they were getting a bit of parity up front and they just had nothing behind. But then when you've seen the Scarlets boys come into the back line in the latter half of the season, you could see the difference it was making when the likes of Titcombe was playing. I mean, he's a senior, he's a professional player now at this sort of stage, but having that sort of, Archie Hughes and the likes of all of those coming into the squad, what they had the forwards there. The forwards didn't change. I mean, Tom Curry, just like his namesake in the England jersey, he's an absolute baller. And he's sort of your typified old-fashioned back rower, really. He does a lot of the hard work. And I think if you look at the stats from last season, he actually got into the top 5 or 6 on quite a few of the metrics. So they've got the players there. I think the back line is where they're going to have to start putting things together and hoping that their squad holds out, because it is quite thin. There's not a lot of depth there, which we've spoken about Aberravan squad being young, but I think there's a bit of depth in Aberravan squad to hold out for a couple of injuries. I don't think that's there with Quins. We'll remain to be seen, but yeah, I think that's they're relying on first 15 staying fit for 90% of the season.
Okay, so here is where I can actually start talking a little bit more positively about the Quins when I'm talking about these younger boys, these academy boys, because I watch the 18s, the RAG 18s as much as I can, and some of these boys, they've got something in them. So, if we talk in that back line, I mean, he's not contracted anymore, but he's straight out of a senior academy, Lucas Ataro. I mean, he could still end up on the Ospreys books, short-term, long-term, wherever. But, he was down in South Africa for the Under-20 World Cup. You don't go to, Under-20s World Cups if you can't play. You've got to be of a certain standard. And when I spoke to Steph Thomas, he said that 10 jersey was specifically left open for Ellis Price, younger brother of Jack Price. And this will be his first year of senior rugby. So it should be his first year eligible for the under-20s, but he played back in the Six Nations. And there's a lot of hope with him. Gabriel McDonald, he was in and around. He bounced around a few teams last year, which was quite weird for me to see. I think he played for 2 to 3 different clubs. But if he can stay fit, Yesting William, another young player again, who's been really solid in our 13 jersey. They keep these players fit and they're going to have a good chance. And he is signed for the Ospreys at the minute, but if his deal doesn't become long term, then Ryan Combia is going to be coming back to Carmarthen. And I think it's unlikely for that to happen because he's such a quality player. I think the Ospreys would be stupid not to keep him for at least a full year. Then that back three just starts going up a gear again. So they've got another 2 young lads, Callum Woolley and Yori Badham. I mean, Yori Badham played on the weekend in the Carmarthen Quins Scarlets Academy sort of game, and every time I've seen this boy play, whether it was for the RAG, whether just reading the match reports from his first game with Tenby, I think it was his only game with Tenby as well, the games with Carmarthen Quins, and even now last week, he seems to be someone who can spark things out of nothing, which if you are struggling in areas, you need those X factor players, which would be brilliant. Like you've already touched on, Rob, Tom Curry. What more can you say? And then you've got someone with the experience of Tom Phillips, who's taken up a coaching role as well. He's already heavily involved with the Scarlets Academy, so he's got a bit of a coaching experience in him. So that'll be great to see. And a young player. He's just come off Wales 18s as well. He's from Buryport, Keanu Evans. Anywhere in the back row. I think if you can get, Tom Phillips, Tom Curry, Lewis Millen, and Keanu Evans, you get those 4, you keep rotating and you keep them forming a unit throughout the season. I think that could be disastrous against any team. Never mind, finishing bottom 3, 4, whatever it was last season. They could go on and do something quite amazing. So, John, we haven't heard your thoughts so far. So, Aberavon, you probably don't really care that much about clubs this far west. So, from the outside in, what's it looking like?
Well, for me, it's I think last season was for Quins, I think below their high standards, because from 2 or 3 seasons ago, they were always right up there as well. And they've always had one of the best scrums in the whole league. It's like Abraham Blaze I spoke to said, if you want to judge yourself against a scrum, it's the Carmarthen Quins scrum. So hopefully that's where their season last season was their little blip. And maybe they've been resetting. Hopefully they can kick on again this season now. Yeah. I say a lot of these players aren't new to me. I've got to admit that. But always a tough. You're always going to get a test up front when you play Carmarthen Quins. So as you boys are saying, if they can get that back line going, then there's no reason they can't compete with every team in that league.
So I'm going to start with Rob this time because I might get a straighter answer. Where do we see Carmarthen Quins? Now, I'm going to be a realist myself, so don't worry if you're feeling harsh. Where do we see Quins this season?
Realistically, I think we're probably going to see them around that 8th. I think there's going to be sides that are going to be slightly below them, but I don't think they've got enough in them at this time. I think they're too early in their reset to truly push up the table. I think they could string a couple of wins together. We say, if they get the combinations, then they all sort of hit and start firing. I think what they're going to have to concentrate on, and it sounds ridiculous, it's like John said, is when they had a couple of the players you've mentioned that have left in that pack, they were one of the best to go against. No one wanted to go up to the park sort of thing. I think if they start targeting fixtures there and sort of making things difficult again and start working on the back line as sort of the season goes on, that's what they'll have to do. But I can't see them much higher than the eighth for myself, purely on where they are rather than who they've got.
Yeah, I've got them pegged for eighth. I said I was going to be real in this. What about you, John? You going to follow suit? You going to get three eights across the board?
I probably am actually, because I was going to say ninth, but then actually I thought about it, and I think I still think I've got two teams in my head that might be slightly lower. So yeah, I'll probably go eighth as well.
So that's our Quins sorted. Now let's head to the main area in the Australian region. We got Swansea. Now, I don't know what I think of this squad, if I'm totally honest. I mean, I'm looking at it and I'm thinking so many of these boys should be playing for Llanelli. And it's hitting me hard, your Lou Phillips Taylor, Luca Giannini, he's a Llanelli Wanderers boy. It's heartbreaking for me to see, those players there, but that is what it is. It's done and dusted. So they're headed up by Hugh Gustafsson this season. They've got there's a lot of good players in there. I mean, Matthew Aubrey, Josh Phillips, Callum Carson, Luca Giannini, as we've already said.
Joe Thomas, quality player.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of good already in that squad, and they have made some solid additions, those few of those players I just mentioned, Phillips, Aubrey, Carson. So as much as they are on a similar boat to Carmarthen Quins, they didn't have a great season. They've had a sizable reset. So, I mean, I'm seeing Cian higher in there, and I'm thinking if he is form, him, Ellis Fackrell, these boys, there's potential there, and it is scary. So, well, I mean, did you get down to Swansea much, John? With Aberafan, do you tend to go down? Do you get to see them very often?
I don't tend to get to as many away games as I would like, but with the little one, I know just most Saturdays are taken up, so I tend to use my credit then going to the home games. But I've tried to get over there, and it's controversial, but not my favourite ground to go to. I still think the Ospreys should have chosen the Tag, but that's another story. But like you said, there's a lot of talent in that side. I know a couple of boys have gone there from Aberafan, like Chris Davis, the prop, and Ewan Temblett, the scrum half, and a couple of from before, Sam Paler at second row, Joe Thomas, quality. But a lot of they're one of those teams. I always think, right, this is going to be the season now. Swansea kick on. This is a big club with a lot of clubs in their area to choose from. So this is going to be where Swansea kick on now. So we'll see. We'll see what's going to happen this year. But
okay, Rob, where are we thinking with these guys? Are they going to kick on, or are we going to see more of the same?
I would like to think they would kick on. I said last season their recruitment was one of the best recruitment sessions of all the teams in the league. And I think John's highlighted that they never hit anywhere near where they probably should have been, in all honesty. They've probably gone even better this year. I mean, Josh Phillips is probably their best signing. For me, he's probably the one that's going to make a real difference. I think they missed Dan Edwards when he stepped up full time to the Ospreys, and you could see that sort of difference. And it's going to be interesting because, like I said, Hemmings, Temblett, Carson, they've all come in the back line from Aberafan. Carson, I think if he can have a bit of a fit run, is actually a really good player. And I think it just comes out to putting it together. I'm not overly confident they're going to be flying up the table where they should be. But I think they'll be kicking on a little bit more than last year. And I think that's going to be partially down to sort of where they are with the 9 and 10 and just having a bit more control. I mean, they had Aubrey a couple of seasons ago. for a couple of games on and off when he was dropping down. Same with Edwards. If they can have that sort of similar level quality, but for a season long, I think they'll be much for the better of it. But I just think they just need to refine the game. They don't look at Swansea and tell you this is what they're doing. This is what their game plan is wanting to be. You know, they're not a side you look at with the set piece. They got some really good players up front and sort of in the loose. I mean, Callum Bowden's been one of my favourite back rowers in the league for a number of seasons, but they haven't had a lot to sort of always back him up. And I think they just need to sort of start nailing down. Are they going to be this gritty side that does you at the driving maul and the scrums, all of that sort of the hard, the proper work, shall we say? Or are they going to be a side where Josh Phillips is going to start kicking this ball around and they're going to start chasing it from behind? Because they've got a lot of pace from behind. I mean, last season, Matt Jenkins and the likes got some really quick amount of tries at the start of the season. They tailed off slightly, but they started really well, scoring lots of points. And I think they're similar to Quinn's. I think their problem is going to be consistency, but just keeping those points, which sounds as it sort of should, easier than it's sort of said than done, but they're the sort of side that they're going to concede 20, 25 points. It's just whether they score 30 on the day. I don't think they've got quite a good enough attack at the moment to do that and consistently get the wins.
Yeah. So they very similar to Commander Quins. They've got one game left in in their pre-season. Of these first three sides, they're the only three sides that've got one game. I've done as well. I've got them all set up. I didn't even plan this. Amazing. So let's have a look. They travel to the Knoll and they put up a good 45-15 win. You can't knock that. So, and then the Origin round as such, 21-12, the 9 points you mentioned earlier, is still a solid score against a pro team. And the last game now is against Swansea University. Now, I know Swansea Uni have a good run out in the Bucks League, but I'm not too sure how much we're going to be able to read into that because RGC thumped them 59-7. So
I was about to say the same. I don't think we see the same uni sides in sort of the preseason as you do in the Bucks leagues. But no. I think you can read into those results. Is there a side that will go into this with heads held higher and sort of nothing beats the sort of the feeling of winning, right? Your confidence, you can't buy confidence. Doesn't matter what you do. If you lose 3 or 4 games at the start of the season, you're going to go in looking for your win. But if you're going in, some good performances, a couple of wins, and I said that Neath win was actually a really good win when you consider Swansea aren't a land every or Newport, right? They're not sort of one of the top 2 teams in the Premiership, and they've pumped a Neath side that have been pretty much the same sort of side that they were last year. So that's a really good result. So I'm hoping that we can see this sort of Swansea side continue, and this is their season when they kick on.
Yeah, so I'm going to start this time just because I'm being a bit mean to them. So I want to get it done and dusted so we can move on from it. I'm putting them in 9th. So that's cool. I think it's harsh, but it's so Quinn's going to be 8th. Come on, be nice. So, John, you're up next. Where do we think?
I feel like I'm just copying now because, that's one of the ones I had in my head that will be below Carmarthen, and 9th is where I think I've got them as well. Just going by previous seasons, every time I think they are going to kick on, they don't. And maybe I could be completely wrong, and it could be they do the complete opposite. But I've got them down as 9th. Yeah.
Rob, last battle.
Yeah. I think their position is going to sort of leapfrog with Bridgend. We'll come to when we look at those, but also the sort of the Quins discussion. But I'm going to be going right and smack bang away we are and give them a Len Goodman 7 at the moment. So I think I don't think it's going to be a blistering season, but I think all of those sides are probably going to be within 4 or 5 points of each other. Your Quins, your Swans, yeah, your Bridgends all going to be there. I then like to think that Aberafon will be that little bit of a jump up from there. But I think, as we saw it last year, there was quite a few teams in sort of bands. I think Swansea are in this sort of middle band where if one result goes their way, they could go to 9th or they could go to sort of 7th and have that not a massive swing, but a sizable swing in sort of terms of it.
So there we go. That's Swansea wrapped up, and we're I'm going to say roughly the midpoint here. It's a random guess. I don't know how much more we're going to get. But if you like what you're listening to, if you're enjoying, please give us a follow on our platforms. We're on YouTube. Subscribe helps everybody, and engage with us. Leave a comment. If you think I'm talking crap, tell me I'm talking crap. We want to engage. We want to get everyone involved as much as we can.
Mm-hmm.
So that's my plug. Roughly half. It is halfway through. Yeah, I think I've done a good time there. If not, tell me I was crap. I was way off. You done it at 20 minutes and you went on for about an hour and a half. What are you on about? Okay, so we just mentioned them now. So the final team in the Ospreys region is Bridgend Ravens. And their star signing has got to be in the coaching department. Picking up a professional coach. Okay, he may have only had one season being a professional coach, but he's still a professional coach. Multi-cap Wales international, loves a lion. So Scott Baldwin is heading up this team, and he's got a good few men in and around him. He's got Matthew Jones and Matthew Morgan who joined together doing the backs. Bradley Davis with the forwards. This is a coaching team that could really push them on.
Yeah.
So
not bad.
Where do we see this coaching team in regards to the rest of the SRC or as the Welsh Premiership used to be?
Yeah, I think you've hit the nail on the head. I think anybody who can get a professional coach in is doing a good job, and it shows a good sign of a positively run club. They've got a structure there, right? If Scott didn't look at this club and go, I don't really like the way it's being run off the field, and so where the direction is, he's not going to come from Newcastle, and I know he's got other roles down here now, but he's not going to say, I'm going to leave that role behind and jump into a sort of a head coaching role at semi-professional level at Bridgend. I mean, Nipper coming in and then sort of Brad Davis taking on the sort of coaching full-time with this pushing the sort of playing days to one side. They're that sort of team now. This is what we like to see as Welsh rugby, right? Is Scott Baldwin, Brad Davis. They're all ex-players, and that's what Wales is sort of forgetting. And this is what the people forget about the league. Everyone talks about the players' development. No one ever talks about the coaching development aspect of this. And this is what we need, because yes, Scott Baldwin started his tenure in the English Premiership, but if any of these top coaches develop into something half decent or really good and want to take it on, we've seen Nick Cudd as well elsewhere, so I think go from playing into Premiership coaching. Cardiff as well, coaching down.
Fish.
It's the one. Let's see these boys develop their coaching and get into the regions. Let's build a coaching development structure as well, because we need this to sort of take place. They're going to learn off a lot of good people down there. They've got some quality players already, and I think they're within a similar boat to Swansea, where they've probably made a lot of good signings in recent years and have never really gone anywhere. They sort of had, not last season, but the season before, from January onwards, they were an absolute machine. I mean, they only lost a handful of games and were picking up points and sort of victories against your playoff sort of teams, your Cardiff, your Ebervales, Newport, Llandoveries, and everyone was going, here we go, this is it, Bridgend, finishing the season strong. I think they only dropped a couple of points at home. And then last season, they sort of deflated slightly and never really hit the same heights. So I think they've made some really good signings. I think their signings are more in the back line. group of Ponty boys coming in, Nash, Burnell, Wilkins, Rowley. I think their backline's looking really good. Um, I thought the retain list was actually quite interesting sort of up front. But I like their back row, and I think they just needed a bit more in sort of the tight five. I don't know if they've quite got that in. It's sort of enough.
Yeah.
I like the Greenslade signing. I
Yeah.
think he sort of suits that sort of bridge end style. I'm assuming Scott's going to continue this sort of open. You know, all their forwards in the recent sort of 5 years have all been ball carrying, dynamic. Let's get the ball through hands, and whether it's sort of been good for them or not, I guess is another thing. But the likes of Yardley and all that, they're always taking it up from the sort of the front and really playing with the ball. Yeah, you've got to be smart sometimes, and maybe Scott and his experience of playing at top level, front row, and sort of as a forward can sort of hone that in so they're not just chucking the ball around and then it's costing them a few sloppy tries. But you know, they've got some really nice things building. I think they're going to be another Swansea. I won't quite give my prediction away, but I think they're going to be in a very similar position of if it's sort of a good season and they push in nicely, but if it doesn't quite go to plan, I think they could drop quite a few places based on sort of those around them being very, very similar.
Yeah, I mean, I'm loving what you're saying about coach development. You know, it is 100% what we need.
Mm.
I know a lot of coaches have come through, the academy system or the Wales age grade system. This is here, use it. This is
Yeah,
where you're going to see the boys in the formative years that you're going to end up coaching when they're older. There's nothing like building those relationships now that you can use later on, and that is something that can be massive in this game, which would be great to see. I mean, they have got a handy squad. I mean, it is, half Ponty, as you spoke about in the back line. But they've got a handful of academy boys as well, which it's going to be interesting to see how they go. Like you talk about their tight five issues, and they've got 4 academy boys in that tight five. If all of them come along at the same time, then this could be a great season for them. Like I don't expect them to crack top 4. I don't expect anybody to crack top 4 other than those that are already there. But that best of the rest, I think that is a possible scenario for them, which would be great. I mean, we all like seeing clubs press on. Everyone, and the thing is everyone can press on. I mean, it doesn't matter if you finish bottom year on year, you can still improve, you can still get better. So that's what we want to see at all levels. We want to see everyone getting better together. If for leapfrogs, it does keep it interesting, but it's not necessarily a necessity. So I mean, I don't know who to pick out here. I mean, I'm looking at the new signings and I'm thinking probably Travis Huntley he's a strong young back rower. No, I think he can cause a lot of damage given the opportunities. So, best of the rest, do we think they can make 5th? I'm not sure. And I think I'm gonna go 6th for these guys. Come on in, John. Where did Bridget fit in?
Oh, you've done it to me again now because I thought you were going to say 7th, so I was going to say 6th. Yeah, but Jen, again, like Swansea, one of those teams that I think they're going to kick on every year because what I find they do, a bit like Scotland going into a Six Nations, they'll have a good autumn and they think, oh, this will be the Six Nations now where Scotland challenge to win this, and they don't. And that's how I feel. Bridgend, every season they've gone for the last 4 or 5 years, I'm like, oh, this Bridgend are going to kick on this season. They've had some really good results. Like they'll play they'll go away to a top 4 team, beat them, and then next week then play someone at home where they should be winning and lose. So I find them a bit inconsistent. But every season, I think this is going to be the season now where Bridgend are going to really challenge at top half and top 6, top 5 playoff places. So, yeah, looking at that now. Like you say, with the coaches they brought in, that's showing some serious. That's setting your flag out. That's setting your stall out, isn't it? They say, right, well, this is where we're going. We've got Scott Baldwin, Matthew Morgan, Bradley Davis. That's a lot of experience to call on for these players. I'm going to go sixth then. I'm going to go sixth for Bridgend. I think this is. It's got to be. It's got to be the year now where they're really going to progress and kick on. And yeah, I'm going to go sixth.
Come on then, Rob, last man up. What's going on in that mind of yours?
Do you know what? I was just about to say they had some really nice pre-season fixtures. I used to cover one of the Midlands leagues for the rugby paper, and Bourneville always used to top that league, and they've absolutely tanked there, and they've beaten Plymouth. But I've sort of pigeonholed myself in here because I've already done 6, 7, and 8 in the league, and I don't think they're going to get top 5. But
I do have to remind you, I will be listening back. I will be putting your places in. It's all fun, it's all friendly until
I'm gonna have to put them in 9th for the reason I've already done 6, 7, and 8. But they're one of those, and I've said it already. Bridge are one of these 3 clubs that sort of 7, 8, 9. I think they're all going to be in this block. I think we sort of all know who's coming bottom in my sort of group. I think Aberafon, I said, are going to be just outside that top 5, and I think then it's the battle of the East of sort of who gets into the sort of, I'll say the top 4. There isn't a top 4, but you get the sort of gist of it. But I just fancy Bridge to just do similar to what John has already said. They promise a lot. They've done a lot in pre-season. I know they had a disappointing half hour against the Ospreys, and then you get your annual Ed Howley absolute madness of a try somewhere along the lines where he drinks a pint and heads the ball along the way to the try line sort of thing. But I think they were one of those sort of awkward ones where they're going to be in that 7 to 9 bracket, and it'll depend on, I'll say, into regionals, and that's sort of between the 3 of those. I mean, if you're picking up the 2 wins, at home, and then you're sort of losing 2 away, you're not too bad. If you lose sort of 3 of the 4 sort of games against the other 2, you probably are going to be pushing it at 8th or 9th. But I'm interested to see. I think they're going to have a tough sort of season. They've got a big set of players coming in, and it's never easy with the coaching staff as well. That's a big group of new players and coaches. So I'm interested to see they go. But yeah, I've pigeonholed myself into 9. Yeah, so we'll go 9th, but I'll just caveat it as 7 to 9. So all them Bridgend fans can be tuning in and screenshotting and coming back to this in 12 months' time saying you fucking dickhead.
Oh, you'll pay for that, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
He doesn't dare go past, junction 34. That's as far as he can go.
That's it. The trips to the High Tide in Porthcawl is probably about as close as I can get now. That's done.
Yeah. No more going to Treacle Bay.
Yeah.
That summer holiday it's down the drain, but you've done yourself now. The missus is not going to be happy. Okay, so that brings us to what should be the final West club. I don't know if I'm including RGC as West. I mean, how much of an angle do I put that together then? So
what about Llandudno?
That's what I'm on about. So reigning champions, double champions.
Sorry, I thought you were finishing up. Sorry, my bad.
This is gonna be fun. This is.
I gotta put this away.
I love the fact it's got portion control on the top bit.
Oh yeah, I'm not an animal.
You've got to know how many sort of shots are in half a bottle, right?
Oh yeah, I did make sure I found a double optic though.
Yeah, you don't want to be guessing how much is a double. You're like,
no.
Do I when the missus says, "Oh, I want a double," you're like, turn it up, 25 mil. You're not having no doubles, no 35s. You're not having that stuff. So we're on to Llandudno now. They got about 50 different championships now with all this, but the extra ones the SRC have loaded them with. Wait a minute. You look at their coaching setup. You got Eros Evans, who he's been in the game so long, and he's been a massive part in almost everyone's development down west for the past 15, 20 years. Through Coleg Cigar, he's coached so many Welsh internationals that it's no one's business. And you touched on it earlier, Rob. They've got Nick Cudd in there now. Leon Randall, coming over from the Quins to coach. That's interesting. But the man that I think has so much impact in Llandovery is their strength and conditioning is Osian Edwards. I think he is worth more than his weight in gold. I think he is a massive, massive reason why this side has been able to have such a high level of consistency for over 2 seasons now, and potentially going into a third. So not a great deal of movement, but when you're champions and it was 1 score against Newport in the final, but when you were hitting those wins consistently, a win's just a win. It doesn't matter how it comes about. I mean, you got people, Jamie Hughes. Jamie Hughes is an unbelievable prop, and I think he could do well in the pro game. I've got no doubts about that. You got Barry and Watkins, who, I'm not sure how old he is, but I think he's been around since I was in nappies. He just seems to have been, playing forever, and he is a rock for them in that scrum. So, they've got a massive squad. There's no doubt, probably one of the biggest squads in the league. I'm looking at it now, and there's a bit of drool coming down my mouth. I'm thinking, Jesus. There's not many places where other teams are gonna beat them on paper. Obviously, the game's not played on paper. We know that.
It's played on 3G now. Up at Landover.
Yeah, but who's paying for that 3G? We all are. We're all contributing. I love that crowdfunding going for that. That's awesome. If it's a community club. Llandovery. Okay, I think only one of these boys is actually from Llandovery, but they've got Llandovery Seconds, which is all the local boys. It is a community club, and it's great for them. But when we're looking at the actual firsts, Lee Reese, captain. He is everything to that team, and I can't pick a bad player out of the bunch. And knowing the Scarlets 18s like I do, you got Tom Phillips, who's come up now, Will Evans. Both those boys were absolutely destructive for Wales 18s as well. Tian Sparrow, I'm hoping to see Tian. He is a tremendous player, but he's had a tough time with illness. So we're not sure I'm not sure if he's going to be on the pitch, this side of Christmas. I hope that he is, because he is that good. And anyone who's watched the Rag 18s, I'm sure there's highlights all over YouTube. You'll see how good this boy is. But you go into that pack. Stuart Worrell. I can't pick many players. I'm just in awe. I am literally in awe going through this. So I can't see anything other than top for these guys. Rob, what are we thinking on the Drovers this year?
Yeah, I think everyone was going to go either Llandovery or Newport for the title again. I think Newport have gone under not a massive change, but a much bigger change. I think Llandovery have kept it really consistent, minimum changes. Yeah, there's a bit of a change at defence and stuff like that, and the pitch is going to be an interesting one as well, right? How they sort of adapt to that. No doubt that's not going to affect the game. They're going to see a drop off, but it always brings interesting tactics to mind when you see how they play. And obviously they beat Cardiff for the title, not last year, but the year before on the old plastic. So everyone's used to it now. Obviously playing at Ponty, playing at Merthyr, when they were still in the league. And they're the sort of side that they can grind out the wins week to week, and then they will shred a good side. I had the misfortune of rocking up late due to traffic on the edge of the valleys when I watched them put 50 points on Ebervale at the semi-final of the Cup down at Aberavon. And I got to say and I'm talking all levels of rugby. When they put, was it 35 points on us in 25 minutes, was some of the finest rugby I've ever seen. They was catching everything, the kicks to hand. Jack Davis played his absolute socks off. And you wasn't even angry at this stage. You was just like, well, I just wasted my Saturday afternoon and that's about it, sort of thing. Like you couldn't do much more. And I know the sort of the two finals, the cup and the sort of playoff were both close in itself, but they are that sort of side where they're going to shred somebody absolutely good this year. And they're not even a side that's just an experienced squad. You mean your Jamie Hughes, your Barians, Jack Jones, all of those who are just sort of peaking. I mean, Max Page, Kean Abraham, absolute incredible season last time out. I mean, it was at Kean scored the hat trick in the first half against Pontypool up at the park. Again, difficult conditions, and I think they put over. Well, they did. They put over 40 points on a good Pontypool side sort of thing. So that just goes to show this sort of side. And yeah, let's just cut the prediction short and say that I can't see anybody knocking them off the top sort of spots. It'll come down, if they are to lose, to that sort of knockout rugby where they will hang on. Have they had a bad day or someone just rocked up absolutely perfect? And of course, they are the reigning the home cup competition now, isn't it? As well, they are the official holders at the moment.
Mm-hmm. I mean, looking through this squad, and I'm going to try to find a weakness. And if I'm going to do it, it's going to be in the backup players at fly half, because you've got Johan Hughes, who's the number one, miles ahead of everyone.
He's been struggling with an injury, or he's just gone out in their last game as well. So that's going to be interesting. I know we've got the best part of a fortnight, but it's always interesting if you're there. But then, are they going to bring Jack Maynard in and that sort of? You just go,
That's what I mean. You've got Jack Maynard that can cover it, and okay, he might not be as great as Johan has been for the Drovers, but I'm looking then behind. You've got Sam Potter, who was his first first senior season last year. Played majority of his rugby with Ammanford, was brilliant for Ammanford, no doubt about that. But that is a league lower down, and he did have a couple of appearances for the Drovers. I think he was that day in Pontypool that was live on Espen Rec he played. Don't quote me on it. And then you've got another young out half in Steph Jack Jones, who I like being positive about our academy boys. It's just this: you've got two very, very young tens. Behind someone. One injury, one knock. That style of play that we used to the Drovers. That sort of game management. I mean, it is brilliant that Lee Reese is the captain, 12 at 9 to guide them, but could that be David Achilles' heel? Could it be a case of Johan, for whatever reason, isn't in that starting shirt every week, or clutch games, like you said? You come into the playoffs, you come into the quarters or the semis, whatever it is, and you lose one or two players. And I mean, it's the same with any sport. Any sport can lose one or two players, but this is where I think Llandovery could be in trouble if the worst were to happen.
Yeah, I think that's going to be. This is where I'm quite interested with the artificial surfaces. The bounce of the ball absolutely changes, and Lee Reese loves to poke it up over the top. Not a full-on box, but it pokes it into the sort of the space. And I'm interested to see if they distribute more through Johan this season, or if they're sort of going to keep Lee doing what he does and just causing mayhem, keeping it open, because the pace of the game will invariably increase on a plastic pitch. And I mean, the league at the moment runs around 33, 35 minutes of ball in play time. if they can increase that a couple of minutes, those lungs of the forwards are going to start burning. And that's like, as we've said, they've got an ample supply of quality forwards. It is interesting how these, a pitch is a big change, but might have to tactically change them slightly as well. And whilst I think we're all happy that Uros can prepare them for that. It's the little things that we can see. And as we were chatting before we went live, that result against Merthyr was quite a bit of a surprise. I mean, Dav Land, one who's left Llandovery, orchestrated a nice performance at the Wern. And you do sort of look at it again. They tanked Swansea Uni as well, put 40 points on them there. So I think that tells us where Swansea Uni sort of are. That RGC put more points past them than Llandovery. Llangennech is that sort of local game. But I think it's going to be interesting this season to see how they tactically change and if that alters their sort of start. Because last season, I won't say they started slowly, because I think that's massively overstating how their performances went. But I think the games were significantly different at the start of the season. And they are one of those sides that when they get going, doesn't matter if they're winning games slightly or not, they just that absolute juggernaut that you just don't stop.
Yeah. So we know Llandovery Newport, we know they're our top two. So Rob, can I get a 1 or 2 from you?
One.
Okay, John, I don't think you've said much on the Drovers. Anything to add? Anything different?
No, not really. They've got to be number one as well for me. I think they're just a quality side, aren't they? I mean, they were just to watch them last season. They just looked like they were playing a different league to everybody else. I thought personally. I've got no affiliation to Llandovery or Newport, but when they came to the final, I was like, I hope Llandovery win this because they've been by far and away the best club side in Wales for all season. So we went up there, played them we had to play them away 2 weeks in a row, one in the league, one in the cup. I think they put 50 odd points on Aberava in that first week. So, and then we brought it back, and next week I think it was like 10 or 12 points the second week, but they're just quality, and they as you were saying about their strength and conditioning, they look so fit and strong. They just keep going. They're relentless, and I can't see them finishing well outside the top two. But I personally think that's number one again this season, because it's like you said, it's hard to find a weakness really in that team that you can see. Well, who's going to knock them off number one then if it's not Llandovery? So yeah, number one for me.
Okay, well that is all 5 of our Westerns. I'm going to try and squeeze RGC in here. I don't know how long we were running for. If we've hit an hour, I'm sorry, it's RGC. You've got to love them, I think. So I'm going to apologise to any North Walian or anyone who likes RGC right now. I don't know a lot about your club outside that your head coach is a man called Josh Leach. I'm hoping to know more about them in the coming weeks if I get a chance to speak to them. But the only thing I've got to go from you is history. And history doesn't really bode well for RGC. I mean, again, Rob, I think you are the most informed man here when it comes to RGC. So, I mean, I've got them finishing 10th. I'm going to come out straight. I've got them at the bottom. Yeah. So where's the professional man's train of thought going?
Similar in terms of prediction, I think they'll be the bottom. I'm interested to see because they've changed their coaching structure slightly. So when Kerry Jones left, they brought in Josh, but he's now in a sort of a director of rugby. It's involvement with the academy more rather than just the SRC. And it's interesting to see because when the role went live, it wasn't that advertised. It was as the RGC head coach, 45 grand a year sort of thing. And it changed slightly when it came out. So it's very interesting to see how they transition there. I think they're reliant on a lot of North Wales, their own academy boys, local lads. They've lost a couple of boys to Caldy the last couple of seasons, and even Caldy have struggled since their sort of promotion. And I think RGC at the moment, they've got a couple of their boys back. Danny's come back from Hong Kong, Danny Cross. I think it was Hong Kong he's come back from. So they've got a bit back, but it's one of those ones you look and see that, you know, even the likes of Swansea and Bridgend and Quins are signing at least half a dozen players, and RGC have got 3 or 4 coming in. A lot of the new faces are from the local places in North Wales, and no disrespect to the rugby community up there, the quality in terms of the standard is far lower than sort of your second tier in sort of South Wales. But I think you look at their results pre-season, they've put 50 points on Swansea Uni, 50 points on Bethesda, narrowly losing to Caldy, and they play them now, I believe, 2 years running in pre-season, if not 3. And that's not a bad result against a side who, yes, finishes at the bottom of the English Championship, but are a good side and are picking up some good performances. So there's certainly some good signs there. And I guess the good news for them is they will always be relatively unknown. You look at the squads, the new faces, all the South teams, East and West. There's a lot of people know about them. You know, I've seen so and so playing, you know, with Baglan or with Ammanford, with Abertillery, places like that, and they see him come up, or they sort of move between sort of clubs. You don't tend to see players bounce up to North Wales. Now I know I spoke to Kerry last season in looking at their position on the academy, and it looks like it's going to be similar this year, where they're only going to pick players from Scarlet sort of academy, or if it sort of suits the player and the club, because the commute is undoable, sort of thing, and it's really once they are in that sort of odd position where they have to be on their own. They have to rely on their own sort of systems. And unfortunately, at the moment, unless there's sort of this talent that's coming through, they could be in for a bit of a struggle long term this season. I mean, last season we saw it. Discipline cost them dearly a lot. Even at home, they was throwing away wins. And I say wins because they was in a good position and still sort of lost the game. And you can't be doing that, especially at home. They need to turn, I always call it Irius, it's a bit like the Millennium Stadium. You always want to turn Irius into a fortress, because it's not easy, right? You mentioned it with Cambridge about the commute. You know, this is, you know, RGC used to come down the day before. Clubs try and go up the day before. I know Ebervale go up and usually stay in Llandudno, for example. But it's difficult. It's not an easy transition for any club and any player to have to go away, especially when you're not used to it. If as a professional you're used to it, but as a sort of semi-professional, you really got to sort of take all your advantages. I think that's what also hurts them on the reverse, is traveling down 4 hours in a sort of a bus, and then having to play the game on a Saturday, and it just doesn't work for them, unfortunately. Not that it doesn't work for them. They've had some really good success, won the National Cup, which is more than mine and John's club can say combined, unfortunately. But it's always those little margins, and we talk about the professional game of whether it be athletics, rugby, football. You look for the little margins. We're only that tier below, and we have to look at these little margins, and you have to look at those. And ever since the Rupert Moon days, when they first set up as RGC 1404, that has always been their sort of downfall to an extent. Is sort of they're reliant on a small talent pool. They then have to retain those and evolve the travelling. But yeah, unfortunately, even with Josh coming in, a bit of a change, boys like Danny coming back, Avon's looking fit now for another good season. Oh, he's at 200 appearances now. I just think losing Evan at scrum half before last season down to the Scarlets. Players like that, once they lose them, they're so hard to replace.
Yeah, I mean, I know Ever did pop back up for a couple of games towards the back end of the season. I'm not sure what his status is on now, but even going back to picking Scarlet's academy players, there's only one academy player I know that's up there, and that's Dylan Alford, and he's a Bethesda boy anyway.
Yeah.
So he's been cherry picked from RGC for Scarlet, and just say, just stay home, play with an RGC. So they don't get the sprinklings like obviously Cardiff get a load. We know Cardiff get a load. But then your Pontypool, Liverpool, Newport, everyone else, they get a sprinkling of this young talent. They have got to work on their own, and you are fighting an uphill battle before you started, which is it's unfortunate. It wasn't the point of RGC in the first place. But, it's where we're at. So we're over to you now, John. The final word on RGC. What are we saying?
Well, I'm going to shock you with this one. And
he's backing him for second.
And go 10th as well.
Oh, that's not fair. We expected something. I was waiting for some passion. It was going to be something so instilling, so inspiring. It was going to make everybody... It was going to be a full Scott Pinnell. Yeah, it was going to make everybody north of Aberystwyth go to IDS every week, even when they weren't playing. I don't know why I said every week. I should have said every other. Okay.
So I just can't see... Yeah, I just haven't seen enough to make me think any different to 10th. Like I say, their pre-season results went, they don't look too bad. Like I say, with Caldy, that's 2 points against a championship side, 50-odd points on lower opposition, but at least they'll be going into this first round then with a bit of confidence, you'd like to think. But I don't know. It's I can't see them being anything other than 10th. But I'm happy to be proved wrong when I usually am. So that's one thing I will say for the RGC fans. I'm usually wrong. So you can hang on to that.
Yeah, I think that wraps everything up for this week. We've got 4 more teams to look at next week and the big kickoff, which is going to be absolutely amazing. I can't wait to get into that. So if you've enjoyed, we'll catch you all next week. Boys, thank you for being here, and we'll do it all again next week.
Thank you, gents.
Cheers, gents.
See you again.
That was the Super Rugby Cymru podcast. Please rate, review and share us on socials if you can, and join us again next week for more of the same. And until then, enjoy your rugby.
This podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.
They got Willa. They got my daughter. I need to find her.
From acclaimed director Paul Thomas Anderson.
You can save that girl.
Today, experience what is being called the best movie of the year.
This is the end of the line. Not for you.
Leonardo DiCaprio, Sean Penn, Benicio del Toro, Tiana Taylor, Chase Infinity.
Let's go!
One battle after another. Now playing only in theaters. Experience it in IMAX. Rated R. Under 17 animated without parent.
You can't hide.